It all began with a group of biological sisters, united by two unshakable truths, a deep and abiding faith in Jesus Christ, and the knowledge that they are cherished daughters of God. Through life's storms, heartaches, and unexpected trials, that sacred knowledge became their anchor. They found joy even amongst their chaos. Now they feel called to share that light, to reach out to you, their sister.
Welcome to Sister Talk. I'm Danita. I'm Denise. I'm Darcy. Today, we are going to talk about boundaries. So, what comes to your mind, sisters, when we talk about boundaries? What's a boundary to you?
Well, boundaries. Well, this one, I didn't think I had much experience in, but then I started thinking about my situation, and I realized that boundaries is a huge thing for me right now. So I have the privilege of living with my mother-in-law, and she set boundaries for me, and I set boundaries for her, and we get along really well because of those boundaries that we set. So my boundaries for her was in the kitchen when I'm cooking. A lot of times in the very beginning, she would come in and she would try to tell me how to cook or how she cooked it. And I just set a boundary that was, I appreciate your help, but when I'm in the kitchen cooking, I'm going to cook it the way I want to cook it, because I'm more of a get things done fast type person, and she likes to cook all day. And I can't do that. So I had to set that boundary. So when I'm cooking, she allows me just to do it my way and get it done quick. She had to set a boundary for me because people that know me know that when I buy a house, I rip everything out of it and I reconstruct it and I completely start new. Okay.
It's beautiful when she's done.
So she had to set a boundary for me because she loves her house. She loves it the way it is. And I had to step back and be okay with that. She set a boundary that I don't want you to change 3 rooms in the house. And I had to be okay with that. And that was really hard for me at first because, like I said, people that know me, I just take everything out and I start over. Also, I really struggle with things in the house. Like in my house, everything has a spot and there is hardly any clutter or things around. But my mother-in-law loves things and she loves to be able to see all those things. And so we had to set boundaries for that. Like she had to have spots to put her things, and I needed to be okay with that.
Boundaries are good even if you don't understand them, because they show respect and love for that person. So she just talked about how she has a child that has set boundaries with her. And even though she doesn't understand those boundaries, she respects them. And she knows that by respecting those boundaries, she is showing love and respect. And also the other thing she mentioned I thought was awesome is dating, which we're going to be talking about dating next episode. So tune in for that one. She said, single women need to have clear boundaries when dating so they don't have to question expectations. It's just clear. And that is so true, is when you're single, to make sure you set those boundaries. So I really loved what Deanna said about boundaries.
So I went on the dating websites. That's actually how I met my husband. And I was straightforward from the beginning in my dating profile, I guess you'd call them. And I literally listed my boundaries. And I thought that I wouldn't get any messages, but what I got was messages saying, thank you for being straightforward and honest and what you need, And I pretty much just said, I don't smoke and I don't drink. And I used to smoke and drink. And so I can't have that be a part of my life. my children come first, and then you need to be okay with that, and there was boundaries that I put into place before they even messaged me, and that was huge and helped me a lot.
I think we all have to set certain boundaries to live within our own belief system. And that's kind of where I went with thinking about boundaries, like um, uh, which movies am I gonna watch with my husband? Like, where are those boundaries? If I walk in and he's watching something that I feel is gonna take peace away from me, I have to set those boundaries and say, I don't want to watch that. You know, that takes my peace away. I don't feel good when I'm watching that. And then there's certain boundaries that we have. Um, like you were talking with your mother-in-law, we grew up in a house that was not very big and had a large family. We learned that everything has its place. And that's the way we were raised. Like, before you purchase something, you got to know where you're going to put it, you know, because there's only so much room in a small house with a lot of people. So I was raised that way, but my husband, who is the exact opposite, we have to set boundaries. Like, I will tell him, like, he seems to think that the kitchen table is where, when he walks in, that's where everything goes. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not that's not your boundary. That's not where you put your stuff, right? And I will find a place for it if you don't by tomorrow. Because this is my clean area. This is my sanity, and that's my boundary. Like, I have to have my spaces that don't have clutter because that is healthy for me, and I have to have that boundary. I have to have he can have his garage disorganized, and I say it's disorganized, but the man knows where everything is in the garage that is disorganized. And I made the mistake of cleaning it up once without his permission, and I erased his he didn't know where anything was, and I was not happy for him. So he has to have boundaries too, you know. And I think in our lives we have boundaries for all kinds of things that keep us healthy. And that's healthy spiritually, that's healthy physically, that's healthy mentally. All those boundaries are very important.
When you set a boundary, you tell them what you are going to do, not what they have to do, because the truth is you cannot control them. So, for example, I loved your example with your husband. If you don't remove that stuff off the table, then I will remove it for you and find a place for it. So the one boundary we haven't talked about is with children. So, and to me, that's very different than if you're with someone who's an equal to you, like an adult.
So I have teenagers, and sometimes they speak to me in a way that I do not like. And instead of lashing out at them or acting the way they are acting towards me, I will ask them to think about the way they just spoke to me and to rephrase it. That's my boundary. So I respect them if they respect me. So if they cannot correct their behavior, then I will do what I do need to do next as a mother, which is find a consequence for their actions. So that's a boundary that I put up with my teenagers is you cannot speak to me that way. And if you do, this is what I will do. And it works. I really don't have that many issues. About once a week, I have to remind them. And I have to say, can you rephrase what you just said to me? And they do. And they know I will show them respect as long as they show me respect.
Which I think that's healthy. I mean, we grew up in a house with boundaries. We knew when we were crossing that boundary. Sometimes we push it, but sometimes we push it just to feel it, you know? And I think that's healthy. I know I had a conversation with a friend, and it was about when your child has forgotten their homework at home. What do you do? Like, do you take it to them? You know? And I had always, I was at home and I homeschooled them for a period of time, but when they were older, they were in a charter school, and they would call me and they're like, I left my homework at home and I need it today. It's due, da 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 da. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm working. You're gonna have to talk to the teacher and see if you can figure that out. I feel bad for you, but I can't really help you right now. Now, could I have dropped everything and taken it to him? I could have. And the friend that I was talking to said, oh, yeah, I take it to him and then I yell at him for the next time. I'm like, okay, that's the way to handle it. But which is more, which of those is the boundary is healthy, right?
Teaching them to grow up.
Yeah.
Teaching them to be responsible. So if they forget it and they know you're not going to bring it, then the chances of them forgetting it again is going to be a lot lower.
Well, and the next time it happened, they didn't even tell me, and they told me later, and they're like, yeah, I forgot it again, but I knew you couldn't help. So I went and talked to the teacher and told her the situation, and she's like, well, I'll just dock you a few points because it's going to be late, but I understand. And I thought, you know what? That was healthy for that child to experience that and to go through the actions instead of relying on mom to come save her.
Right. They learned how to solve their own problem, which is so important.
And that's boundaries is all about problem solving.
Yeah.
And if you're in a situation where you have a problem, there's probably a boundary that you need to set or you need to abide by in order to solve that problem.
Yeah. For Delcy, she has how many? Four littles under the age of, is it 12?
9. 8. No, 9.
9 years old. 4 little. She has 2 twins and then 2 little ones. So she is in the middle of motherhood with a lot of littles. And so I asked her what her advice was and what was the hardest thing about setting boundaries with young children. I just want to take a moment to read what she said. She said, I raised my kids to be independent, which sometimes means they are willing to stand up to me and push boundaries. I think that not taking offense and staying calm is most important, and I agree with her on that. You need to be able to be calm when someone crosses those boundaries, or you're just causing more conflict in the situation. She goes on to say, positive reinforcement is more powerful than negative for kids. Still working on not using if-then statements with my kids so they don't feel like I make the conditions for everything. So she allows them to feel like they have some control because it actually helps them to make decisions as they're older if you allow them to make decisions and you're not constantly controlling them. And then she gave an example of when she had to set a boundary. She said, Julia, this is one of her older, this is her only daughter, right? Her older daughter. Yeah. Julia wanted to go to school, but her brothers were sick. She was missing a party at school and had a mental breakdown. We pushed through it in hopes that she would see that things work out even when you don't get your way. You have to set boundaries and coach your kids through the difficult times and not just give in and meet their every want.
Now you gotta stay here till you can calm down and stop laughing and keeping Macy awake. She's gotta get up early at school.
And I go get early at my church school.
Yeah. So you need to go to sleep too.
I am happy.
I'm glad you're happy. But you need to stop laughing and being loud and waking Macy up. Can you do that? Okay, let's see. Let's see how quiet you can be. Good job.
I used my word. And you did. And you didn't say. Let me in my bed.
You want me to let you get back in your bed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And get back in my bed.
Okay, you can't laugh. Looks like you're still laughing. Are you sure you can stop laughing?
And I promise.
You promise? Okay. Okay. So be super quiet. Good job.
There are different types of boundaries. We can set boundaries and they can be very unhealthy.
Yeah.
And then we can set good, healthy boundaries. So I want to talk about the different types of boundaries. There are 3 types of boundaries, and I like to relate them to a fence around the house. And I like to think of the house as your self-worth. Okay? If you value who you are, then you will protect that worth. So you don't allow people to mistreat you because you value you as a person and that you have something to offer and that you need to be treated a certain way. And that's healthy to feel that way about yourself, to feel that you have value. And so there are 3 types of fences I like to think about. Number 1 is no fence at all. And this type of boundary is having no boundaries and just allowing people to mistreat you without any consequences. And I have to admit, in my first marriage, that's how I lived. I had no boundaries whatsoever. And it was miserable because my whole focus was on trying to make that other person happy, even if it made me miserable. And that's not healthy. It's not healthy to do that. I had self-worth. I needed to be treated a certain way, and I needed to be okay to say, no, it's not okay to treat me this way. And also to have boundaries with him, meaning that there's certain things I shouldn't be doing to him. And so you need to understand that you need to have boundaries as to how you're going to treat other people as well. It goes both ways. The second type of boundary is I like to think of it as a prison wall with a barbed wire fence. And this type of boundary is everyone is against you. And if you allow them to get close to you, they're going to hurt you or disappoint you. I went through this as well after a divorce. My trust was shattered and I struggled to trust relationships at first. And so I had a wall up and it was really hard to allow people in there. And when I was triggered at all, I would lash out. And so that's unhealthy too. So those are 2 extremes, no boundaries and a prison wall. So what is healthy? I like to think of it as a white picket fence. Because it has a very clear boundary. This is my land, this is my home, but it's also kind, beautiful, and welcoming. You invite people into your life, but you have very clear boundaries as to what behaviors you will allow. Do you guys have any thoughts on those boundaries, what type of boundaries? Have you had experiences with those?
I have.
Okay.
I was a substitute teacher in a school district, and I did that for about 3 years. And there was this girl that was just foul language, and I had to say something. It was bothering me, And I said, could you please not use that word around me? And she was a little snarky and snotty about it. And then I said, it doesn't make me feel good. And so if you would just not say it around me, I'm not saying you can't say it, just not around me. And she kind of got a little quiet and kind of got a little, I could tell, a little put off by it. She was offended a little bit, but she didn't say it anymore. And she came, was in that classroom for 2 days. And each time she came in, she never said it. I had set that boundary, And she was willing to, go along with the boundary that if, okay, it's not that I can't say it. I just can't say it around you.
Just, I guess, with my husband, I didn't think we had boundaries, but when I started thinking about it, I realized we do, because the same thing. We grew up with a house that everything had a spot, and my husband is the opposite of his mother. He loves things, but he loves new things, and so there are new things coming to my doorstep every day, and the house gets full of it. And I had to set boundaries when it came to that. I also had to set boundaries when it came to the way we spoke to each other, because there was times where we weren't speaking to each other nicely. So for the first one, it just started taking over the house, and it was causing me anxiety, like serious anxiety. And so I first started just taking it all and putting it into totes and getting it out of my sight in the garage. And he hated that because he couldn't find anything. So that was hard. And so we came up with a new boundary where he handles his room. And when I get overwhelmed, I just mention, your living room is getting kind of overwhelming for me. And he handles it. He takes care of it. He puts things away, and that way he can find things. And I'm happy because it's not all over the place. And so we found a happy medium with that. With so my husband and I are both very strong personalities. But I have learned to hold my tongue and not say things that I regret. And he does the same. We try to do the same, but we also both want to get our points across. And sometimes that the levels of volume get too high. And at that point, I have to step back. I have to walk away. I have to get the spirit back. And so my boundary is when it gets to that point, I walk away, and he gives me time to calm down. He gives me time to feel the spirit again. And then we come back together, and my husband is so amazing. He's always the first to apologize and the first to just be awesome. So I appreciate that for him, and that he gives me the boundary of letting me walk away and letting me calm down.
Yeah. I love it because both examples show that when you honor other people's boundaries, like our sister Gianna said, it shows love and respect. Thank you for watching Sister Talk and joining with us. And don't forget to find joy in your chaos.
If today's message brought you hope, insight, or even just a moment to breathe, we invite you to like, follow, and subscribe. There's more to come, more truth, more healing, and more sisterhood.